What's up, viewers? Welcome to episode number 10 of the 7-Figure Real Estate Show. Today, we are joined by Tanner Herget. Tanner Herget is a self-storage real estate mogul and entrepreneur owning several restaurants and bars. We're kind of doing like a reverse intro today where Nick has had to bounce probably off to some type of client meeting. So Tanner, what do we talk about today?
Yeah, excellent. So we talk about how I've built my empire up to over 1,800 units in just under 5 years. We also talk about how I got my start. I started in the restaurant hospitality business after purchasing my duplex. I had some money left over and how that all started.
Yeah, so that's a quick little teaser. Don't want to give away too much. Make sure you stick to the end so you can hear all the good stuff. We actually talked a lot more about entrepreneurial and some mindset stuff that is great to apply not only to real estate, but any type of business venture, whether you're, 18 right out of high school or 45 with a full family. With that said, let's get right in the episode.
I first want to start off by saying thank you, Tanner, for joining us today. TheStorageMogul.com. This story is absolutely amazing. Tanner and I have known each other since early 2000, right?
Yes.
So, Tanner, walk me through your first acquisition of a storage unit, because I just thought that was such an amazing story.
Absolutely. So Nick and I met in the restaurant hospitality business. I was actually closing one of mine and moving my stuff into a storage facility. I had one already for like the summertime stuff, and I went back to the same place and he had no room. And I was like, how do you not have any room? His prices were too cheap. That's why he didn't have any room. So I went to the competition right across the street and moved all my stuff in there. And I needed a large unit. So I did that. And then after I came back and just started talking about how bad their customer service is, everything about what they do, all their policies, their procedures, they forced me into certain things and I just didn't like it. So that started the conversation with that guy. And from there, we just talked about how terrible it was. And he said that he actually got an offer from them and they were about $200,000 shy of what they wanted or what the owner wanted. And so I thought about it for a night and I came back and I was like, I think I can get there. And so we started down that process and it didn't appraise out to be what it should have been. So I had to come up with some extra cash and all that kind of stuff. But that's how I first started it in 2017, and I actually purchased it in 2018.
So how many units was that storage unit?
182 units.
Wow.
It was just under a 2-acre parcel and 7 buildings, 8 buildings. And since it was kind of that diamond in the rough, it just wasn't a great looking place. Some of it had pavement, some of it didn't. It had an extra lot there. The gate opened automatically at 8 a.m. and closed at 6 p.m. So people couldn't get in after 6 p.m., which I thought was not smart. I wanted to offer some other amenities. So over the next year process, I did better software. He had thumbtacks that he would put in, and this person's late, it's an orange, and this one's available, it's a green, and this one's paid up and it's black.
Yeah. So Tanner, you have always amazed me. It's something that I've always looked up to you about is your ability to systematize stuff.
Yes.
And, use technology to make your life so much easier.
Yeah,
and we've
correct.
joked about, because I own real estate and you're like, Nick, how are you not using this software yet?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's, I love that. And then you took it over. It basically was poorly managed, and you added it better management and better software, better things to help ease your life, but also increase revenue. Is that correct?
That's correct. So he owned a business right next door, so people would come over to that business, pay him by check or cash. That was his only way. There was no office that I acquired in this acquisition. And so I had to figure out immediately a way that I was going to do that. So over the next year, I converted everybody to rent online, call if they needed to do something, but text and email. So it was all done right through the platform. And then converted them. We started not accepting cash. Checks were, you could swing by and deposit them, put it in a Dropbox type of thing. But converting everybody to e-check. That way I don't have to grab that check and go to the bank and deposit it. We just automatically run it. So it was either e-check or debit credit card.
That's wild. That's wild.
And then if Then I started into the gates, which I really like. So if you don't pay after 5 days, it automatically shuts off the gate. Your key code won't work. There's a lot of other systems out there that you got to go there physically and do it. Mine all done right through the software. So
is this a software that you've created, or is this a software that's out there for people
it's
to
out
access?
there for people to access. Yeah. So it's a great software. And yeah, after 5 days, it shuts them off. They pay immediately, and then it turns the gate code right back on so they can enter right in.
That's wild.
So you keep track of everybody that comes in. The newer system that I've started to install is everybody that goes in and out. So you have to keypad in, and then you have to keypad out.
What's the benefit of keypadding out?
You're tracking exactly the times that they're in and out.
Okay.
Yes. So, in kind of like hearing you talk, I think the general consensus of self-storage is that, it's like one of these zero management types of real estate investment vehicles. I just get a self-storage, people take their stuff out, there's no tenants, there's no, my toilet's not working, there's not any like complicated electrical or plumbing. But from hearing you talk, there's actually a lot of other things that you wouldn't even think about that can arise different issues, and that you've really taken the self-storage business and systematized it and made a lot of the day-to-day tasks that go into managing it and systematizing it and using high leverage. So you don't have to hire an administrative person to keep track of the orange, green, and black thumbtacks. And this is simply just a software program.
Yep.
So are you looking for self-storage facilities that are poorly managed, or are you more looking at the numbers and the location?
So when I acquire and look for things, I look for the diamonds in the rough, the ones that have trees growing in them, or I look for B properties. It's tough to, unless they have land, buy an A property, unless you can expand on that. It's really tough because they want top dollar for an A property. So what I'm doing is I'm putting them into that B or A properties. So they're beautiful fences, brand new pavements, all that kind of stuff.
So you're looking at the value add system.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. So Tanner, you started by purchasing 182 units, and now what are you at?
I'm at 1,837 units.
And you've done that over you've done that since in the 5 years.
Yep, 2018 to now. So it was September of 18. My first was October 1st. Was my first time that I built in 2018.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so 1,800 units is a lot of units.
Yes.
And so when you're looking at your whole portfolio, are you looking at each individual location, or are you looking at your all 1,800 units, the average rent, the average vacancy amongst the entire operation, or are you breaking that down to each individual site?
Yeah, so each facility has its own software. So I look at each individual facility to make sure that each one is profitable.
They're all the same softwares, though, right? They're all the same systems.
Yep, but you have to log into one to log out. Or there's multiple tabs that we have.
Okay.
Yep. So each software has its own, and then each one has its own books. So we want to make sure that everything is exactly perfect.
So at this stage, what would you say you are working on this business on a weekly basis?
I'd have to say not much.
No.
I have two people in the office that are doing it, and I have one that's out, I'll say 1.5, that's out cleaning the units, trimming, mowing lawns, all that kind of stuff, the maintenance tech.
Yeah. So you've moved on to acquisitions.
Yes.
So you're currently looking to add?
I am. Yep. I'm talking with two different places, but that's additional 5 units, 5 facilities. I don't have all the stats on them, but yeah, I just acquired two weeks ago. So last year I was up to 8, and then this year I had 2 more so far. But yep, actively acquiring.
Wow. So
are you like, driving around looking up self-storage units, and then you find one, and then are you finding the owner's contact and reaching out, or are you kind of putting yourself out there for people to come to you?
So I've gotten to the point where I send out spring letters. Hey, happy spring. And a lot of people are frustrated after the winter, shoveling, doing all that kind of stuff. So I say, hey, if you're interested, so I did the last 2 springs. I'm going to do a fall one. I pretty much had my staff go out and get a list of every single storage facility in the state.
Nice.
So actively, I'm only looking for Maine. Well, I'm looking for additional, but actively, I've only done Maine so far.
Yeah.
And but I also have a broker who's actively, very, very actively, and I'm his first phone call. So
That's great.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's great.
All right. So at the end of the episode, I definitely want to talk more about your self-storage investment business, and also talk more about the financial side and how you got your initial startup capital. But let's like rewind. You started in the restaurant business.
I did.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then did you go to college?
I went to college. I think college is great. I know there's a lot of people out there that says college isn't great. I think it's great to go to a college to figure yourself out, to drink and have fun and do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And go abroad. I'm really big at go a semester abroad. That really has helped me be able to communicate with peers and other people and teachers and take that stepping stone and move on. So I know that there's a lot of big people who say, college isn't worth it. I was lucky enough that I got my college paid for. It was a state school, but I went to a business college and I think it was great.
Yeah.
And I will provide that for my son. So
Yeah. I don't mean to stereotype, but did you play football?
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah. I played football for UNH for a couple of years.
Nice.
So that was good. Yeah, but yeah, I'm a
Yeah, well, it was. Do you think it was more about becoming just like a well-rounded person? You mentioned like playing a sport, like having fun and partying with friends, and then going abroad. So it just made you in understanding other cultures.
Yep,
So
absolutely.
How much do you think like being a well-rounded person has helped you in life and business?
Well, I think that's very helpful. Being able just to talk to somebody, being able to walk into a room and say hi.
Yeah.
Versus the people who don't are focused and they're after one thing. They're not able to communicate. They can't go out to a restaurant with somebody and carry on a conversation. And I'm not saying that in general. I'm just, I think it helps for you to become a better person, a better man, and get out of your house and into the real world.
Yeah. It's a nice stepping stone.
And I've also seen, I've had a couple staff members who've taken off and gone for a semester, us being in the restaurant business, they were servers and stuff like that. And they go away for a semester and then they come back and you're like, oh my God, you're a changed person.
They're different.
And I really think that's my belief. So
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So you go to college, you had this great experience, you're a well-rounded person, went to business school, and then you get into the restaurant industry. When I look at the restaurant industry, I'm sure a lot of people, they think it's like the coolest thing. They see, restaurants selling, $100, $200, $300 tables all night long and over in like crazy margin drinks. And it seems like this glorified business, but you left. So it must have not have been all that great, or you didn't align with like who you were. Like what happened?
yeah, so I'm still in it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I built.
Is it how I just described it, the restaurant industry?
Yeah, very glorified. So it's funny. I'll tell you a quick little joke, but I'd be like, yeah, I'm the owner of Bonfire, which is my current place that I own, Bonfire Country Bar.
Nice.
And people will go, oh my God, look at this. And then I'll be like, yeah, I got an amazing real estate portfolio. And they're like, cool, bro.
Yeah.
So very, very glorified. Yeah.
Nice.
But to go back to your question, yes, I got into the restaurant hospitality business. I bought a two unit, a duplex, and had extra money left over. So I started with $25,000 and $25,000 at 18% interest, invested $50,000, and I was half partner into this place called 51 Wharf.
Yeah.
And that was 2006. I was 23 by the time it opened, and it failed miserably. So that was August. By January, we had to pay CMP, the local power company, every day. We were on a plan. We had to pay every single day. And then, we were over $70,000 in debt. I was funny. I went to the partner. I was supposed to be in the background, and I was like, okay, I need to pay back this credit card. It's 18%. It's racking up. And he's like, yeah, we're in huge debt, over $70,000 in debt.
Oh.
So that's where I left my job and, saddled up and went for that ride. And that was 2007.
So you kind of tried the entrepreneurial, was that right out of college?
Yeah, so that was a year and change out of college.
Okay, and then how did you come up with this $25K to start a business?
So that goes
mind me
back. But I bought and sold things in college.
Nice.
So
you were always a hustler.
Yeah. Always trying to do something. So I had some money, and that's how I got my money to start and put down for my 2 unit.
That's
but
awesome.
I knew that's the first step. But I went in with 20,000 or 20% down and renovation costs. And back in that day, they were like, no, you don't put 20% down, put 10% down. You can still avoid PMI and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I did do that, and I had extra money left over.
Well, okay, so you took the entrepreneurial route right out of college, and you kind of have this big failure. And obviously, you're wildly successful today. So you clearly bounced back. But was there like a delayed period where like shit, like this is impossible. I can't do this, or because you're $75,000 in debt. I imagine you guys ended up closing down the business.
Nope.
Oh, really?
Nope.
What happened?
I stepped into the business and became very successful in that. So it was open for 12 years.
So you pretty much did like a reboot of the restaurant and it made it successful?
I went and we basically turned it into a nightclub. So it was a restaurant by day and a nightclub by night. And that's where I really met Nick, because he had a business right across the street from me.
He was always there drinking at like
no, definitely not. Nick did not.
He's like, oh, here's Nick again.
There I was.
Want the regular?
But it was an interesting time period, but it was always a grind. Every weekend, or after the weekend, so every weekday, we're fixing something, doing something, making it better. We installed like 3 sound systems throughout the 12 years.
That's
and
awesome.
It was because I could afford a certain amount, and then we would install that, and then we would put money into the light show and do that. So we were always coming out with some new kind of promotion or whatever it might be.
Yeah. Have you read the book Atomic Habits?
I haven't.
Okay, that reminds me of the whole idea of Atomic Habits is like these small 1% gains, and what you're talking about is like the new sound system, the marketing, like the increasing the taste of your margaritas. It was like, and there was a story with the British cycling team where they were so bad that they couldn't even get bike sponsorships because the bike companies didn't want to be associated with the British cycling company. And they got this new coach, and he came on and he just made like these small, he fixed the Lycra that they were wearing when they cycled, and they painted the bus white so they could see all specks of dust, and they got a health coach to teach them all about eating, and they got them all new mattresses. So it's like these small 1% improvements, and then 7 years later they went on to like win the Tour de France and like take home like the most gold medals at the Olympics. So it's like these small. I'm curious. Obviously you haven't read the book, but I think you understand the purpose, the message really well. Have you used like these small 1% improvements in all of your businesses?
No, not now. I'm doing major changes. Come in, whip it around, make it look amazingly beautiful for pretty inexpensive. But no, but back then I did, whatever profit, 1,000, 2,000, 500, whatever I made that week, that was my budget for that week.
Yeah.
So, I, for many, many years got paid nothing. Nothing as in like $200 a week type of thing. So I was living off of peanuts, but yeah.
So how long were you living off of peanuts before? Was it just like 1 year everything changed?
Yeah, it was 2014. That everything changed for me. That's when I paid off. My life goal was to pay off my house in under 10 years and hustle that. So I went from the first restaurant, opened up a second. That was 2006, first one. 2009 was the second. And then 2014 is when I saved for many years and threw everything against the wall for this concept of Bonfire Country Bar.
Yeah.
And one of our best friends, mutual between Nick and I, he recommended 2 of the best things about it, which is red Solo cups and country themed.
Nice.
He's like, I hate country. I'm not a fan of it, but you should open up a country bar if you think about opening it up. So it was that combined with really great rent. Back in that day, our rents were very, very expensive. The combination of that and just, I remember one of my failures the week before we opened, there was a huge flood, and I had all these TVs. I put all these TVs up on the wall, and then I took them down and wrapped them back and put them in the basement. And then there was a huge flood, and it ruined every single one of them.
No.
And I could not financially afford it. So even then, I had saved, and I didn't have any investors. I didn't have any loans or anything like that. It was all money that I had saved. So, and I had stretched my credit cards real thin on that. I've done everything. So, I went and had to refinance my vehicles. I had my vehicles paid off, but I went back to the dealership and said, hey, I need money. So here's the titles. And, I refinanced them. So,
wow.
And yeah, that was about $40,000, to replace the equipment and the TVs and the computer systems and all that kind of stuff. That I remember, that was a crushing night.
Yeah, I bet.
And to come back from that is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that I went from a super low to a super high the first weekend that Bonfire opened. Doing amounts of money that I couldn't ever fathom before.
Yeah.
And the thing is, with the nightclub that I owned before, it was 9:30, 10 o'clock to 1 o'clock.
Right.
This was, we open at 4 to 1 a.m. and it's pretty much busy. There's a little bit of a low right around 9 o'clock, but then it starts to pick up. So I threw everything I could think of against the wall. People go to a bar and you get free popcorn. Well, I decided to give them free bacon.
It was cool.
Right.
It was a great hook, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, people were talking about it all over the city.
Yeah.
That's a really cool concept.
I also, when I opened, I did free burgers for a year for the first 100 people.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was one burger a week. And the thought behind it is it would bring people in at least once a week. And those people would bring in somebody else and show them the place. Like, hey, if I'm like, hey, I get a free burger, I'm like, I'm bringing you. And then the next week I'm bringing you.
That's awesome.
It's starting to create that clientele.
That's really cool.
Hey, thanks so much for watching the show today. If you ever want to buy, sell, or invest in real estate in the greater Portland area, please reach out to us here at Danbury Guerin Real Estate Advisors. Our phone number, 207-553-2400, or you can always email us at team@danburyguerin.com.
The 7-Figure Real Estate Podcast and the CE Shop have partnered to provide you guys with awesome real estate licensing education. So wherever you are in the US, if you are looking to get your real estate license, make sure to check out the CE Shop and you can start your real estate journey today. We have links in all of our descriptions. So if you're interested, make sure to scroll down, click the link, and get started. Hey, listeners, and shout out to you if you're watching this on YouTube. Whatever you're doing right now, maybe you're folding laundry, maybe you're in a car ride, maybe you're at the gym, maybe you're just listening to this to pass some time. We ask that you guys can help us grow this podcast. And the only way this grows is through your help. And that means sharing, commenting, liking. Now, we're putting a ton of work into this episode with cameras and lights and action and bringing on good guests. So any type of engagement you guys give us can help us make this bigger and bigger. Again, we thank you guys so much for all of your support, and we look forward to growing this thing. You opened Bonfire, very entrepreneurial with your guerrilla marketing with the free burger. I've never heard of that, but that's awesome. I might employ that strategy. And so that was in 2014.
Yep.
So then, and you bought your first self-storage in 2017?
2017, I started negotiating 2018.
Yeah, 2018.
So I closed down 51 Wharf and Fort FM in 2017, and that's where I moved my stuff into that storage facility.
So you sold them? Or you just
closed them?
Okay. So did you take any money out of that?
Nope. I tried to, and this is where I decided to get into real estate and storage. Is I tried to sell them, and I had a lot of tire kickers and people that were like, "Hey, it's worth $100,000 maybe. We need to rebrand. We need to do this. It's a tired brand. It's 12 years old.
Well, there's nothing to sell. So when I was selling the Oasis across the street, I'm just like, we're doing this massive revenue, and you can show like, hey, this business makes a ton of money annually. And if you're doing 3 times EBITDA, it's like, oh, this thing's worth $1 million, and you're like, yeah, no, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, it doesn't.
It's like you're lucky.
You can't go out and buy bank finance that.
Yeah, you can't get it financed.
So
So there's no exit strategy, which is hard. And you got to find that. Which back to what you're great at is you got to find that manager so you can step out.
Yeah,
and still collect the revenue, but somebody else is running it.
Right. So that's like the job, and then that's me being rich, but I'm not becoming wealthy.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's the difference between those. So I started and wanted to get into real estate in 2016-17 timeframe. So I'm like, okay, let me start with a couple apartment complexes. Went down that road, and that's on one side. But I took all my stuff, and I'm like, well, Bonfire is a great plan. So I put it in that storage facility, and I took that and I went to Manchester, New Hampshire, and opened up another Bonfire.
Yeah.
Oh, there's 2 bonfires.
Just 2 bonfires.
Okay, so this is going to be a little off topic from real estate, but really interests me as an entrepreneur. And so now you're starting to create like a brand, and brand recognition, and you actually, I imagine your systems are more mature than just like a small business for as far as operating a bar. So now you're actually, you mentioned like make it hard to sell in a restaurant, but once you have like multiple, from my point of view, once you have multiple locations, you have an established brand, and you have these systems in place, and customer loyalty, this is actually something you could now sell. Like,
Correct.
Yeah.
or franchise.
Or franchise.
So Bonfire in Portland, Maine is very small. It's about 1,800 square feet. And then I went and opened up a 10,000 square foot complex.
Oh, wow.
I wanted a function room. It's got a pizza place attached to it. It's got a game room that I basically stole from the Oasis, like the Giant Jenga, the Connect 4. But then I went with bubble hockey, air hockey, golden tee, big butt, kind of everything.
Yeah.
So a little like fratish, like fun area. It's got stairs, so parents can be upstairs eating dinner, having a couple of beers, and the kids can go downstairs. And there's only one exit towards that, so you know that your kids are safe and you can eat and drink and have fun with your friends. So awesome. It's got a function room. It's got it had live entertainment, which Portland doesn't. So definitely, I created, okay, this is going to be the smallest one and this is going to be the biggest one. And I was looking into franchising. And so I created that successfully in 2017. Great hit. Love it. Manchester's great. And so I met with somebody I won't mention, but very, very high up and has sold his brand. Everybody recognizes it. So I met with him and I asked, I go, hey, I'm looking to franchise. And he's like, why? And I'm like, well, I'm excited. I love my brand. He's like, you love your brand. That's the fact. So he goes, basically, when you start to franchise, you lose the love for the brand. You could care less. It's all about lawsuits. It's all about everything that everybody signs. It's all about the BS that's associated with that. He goes, I could care less about the brand. And he goes, that's why I sold it. Like I didn't want anything to do with it, because all I'm doing is dealing with being sued by all of my franchisees. And so that's where I was like, well, I'm making more money or, becoming wealthy in the real estate game.
Yeah.
So that's where I decided not to expand in that anymore.
That's nice.
So Bonfire for you is more of a passion project at this point?
Yep.
It was the seed money.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's the seed money.
It's basically created the seed money to be able to buy real estate and
yeah. Well, it's admirable you're not taking the route of I'm just going to franchise because you clearly have a good business model. It's unique. People like it. It's proven to be effective. So it would be less challenging to go out and franchise it and teach people how to do it than it would that initial opening.
Right.
So it's admirable you're not taking that kind of greedy route and like staying true to the brand.
Yep.
And then
I've thought many times to open up one in Boston.
Yeah.
I mean, right in Southie, it would be perfect. It's exactly what Southie needs. So I'm just held back. And, in the last year, I evaluated many times. I went down to Boston, went down to Southie many nights. And I'm just thinking, I'm like, this would be a great, great fit. Like Wharf Street in Portland, Elm Street in Manchester. Yep. Southie right there.
Well, you can still do that and not, dilute the brand with the franchise.
Yep, I could. Or I could team up with somebody. That was another thought. There's a couple groups down there that would work well, but just been focusing on the real estate. So
yeah.
Very cool. So this is a real estate podcast. So let's bring it back. Let's talk more about the financial side. So obviously you try to find these B, C class storage unit facilities, trees growing, they might have some dirt roads, the systems suck. What do you look for in a storage facility financial wise?
So there's a couple different ways that I evaluate it. One is the cost per square foot. B's and A properties are selling for $125, $150 a square foot now. And so that's one way that I can evaluate. Okay, where does this fall on that Richter scale? How is it managed? Why I've been buying in Maine is because people don't manage it well. They've put up a couple of storage facilities on their back land type of thing. That's one way of evaluating it. Cash flow is another way of evaluating it. What your cap rates are, that type of stuff. So, and then,
do you look at area? Does that come into play? I mean, if you say you find a storage unit that's $100 a square foot, but it's in you're like, oh, I'm not going to X area.
You're right. No, not really. I mean, I've all the way up as far as Skowhegan as of right now.
Yep.
Still looking to expand more, but no. Skowhegan was a terrible purchase when I thought in the beginning, and I was kind of beating myself down, but it's turned out very well. So it's been 9 months now since I purchased that last year. In the first 3 months, I was like, Jesus, I kind of made a bad mistake here. And then it turned around real quick.
Yeah.
What happened?
Just the management of it, being able to call the other people. this older gentleman owned it, and his son owned another business. So he had the secretary managing it, and she didn't want anything to do with that. So that was, the mismanagement, and he had no idea. He had no idea what was coming in, what was going out.
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
So, he said he was completely full, and he was not.
So where's the goal? What's the goal? You're at just over 1,800 units.
Yeah. I toss it around a bunch. I've had a goal mentally back in the the late 2020, early before 2020. I was like, okay, where do I want to go? How do where's enough? And I still contemplate that. That's a great question, and I still have been talking about it with my social network, like who, where, what, everything. Where's enough? When do you really step back? So about last May, June, I really stepped back from the hustle. I'll say I've hustled for many years, and I just stepped back. And it was a good time for me to be able to do that. And my work, has all paid off. And those storage facilities I purchased last year were all because of that. So I've really gotten to the point where I'm enjoying life a lot more.
Good.
And so, how much cash flow do you need every year?
Right.
That's what I evaluated. And I hit that goal, and I'm comfortable now.
Yeah.
So, those purchases, the nice car or whatever that I have done have all been very recent. And it's because, you finally need to reward yourself.
Right.
You can't die with it, that type of thing. So, don't get buried alive with it. So, one of the other pieces of advice that I've taken very well, don't build your wealth and lose your health. And then you pay your wealth to gain your health back.
Yeah.
So at that, you got to be careful of that. And so that's what I've been working on. I don't want to, be in my 50s and 60s and then finally be like, okay, I can enjoy life. And then you have a couple of years.
Yeah.
So this is kind of speaking from like a younger, someone with the younger ambition. How has your mindset changed over the years? Because going out of college and then immediately rolling over this $25,000 you hustled for your whole life, and putting that on the risk in a business, and then another, you save one business, you refinance your cars. Like, you must have been extremely ambitious when you were in order to go after those types of feats. But now it's like you're talking about where you're at now, and you're saying, honestly, at this point, like I'm comfortable with how much I'm making, and I just want to have fun. So how has that mindset changed and evolved over your, getting out of college to now?
I think big things in your life affect you, definitely. Whether it's marriage, whether it's kids, whether it's, breaking up with a girlfriend, or all those things. I tend to have long-term relationships, 3-4 years, but when I, separate from that's when I'm like, okay, let me think about where I'm going, where I've been, how I got here. And I realized, in my last relationship or just after that, I was like, wow, I've really become wealthy during that period of time, but I still had my goals. Like, I wasn't. So I wasn't enjoying life. I didn't care what I dressed like, or, that type of stuff. So, I felt like I was the Adam Sandler wearing, a hoodie, type of thing. So, just
self-care.
Yeah. All that type of stuff. So, I think that there's milestones in your life that you have to sit back and reflect upon. And, mine was last year that I was like, okay, I've done well, and I need to step back and not lose my health.
Yeah.
So what do you recommend? I imagine you're glad that you put in the work and you hustled.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the hustle that I've done, have now fruitioned into what it is now.
So what do you recommend for, someone fresh out of college, even out of high school, who's looking to, really take that ambitious entrepreneurial journey, not make the mistakes of, do you think like you had to go into debt in that business to go under for you to get where you are today and learn those lessons?
I don't think I had to go into that extreme of debt or anything, but you need to invest into something. So whether, if you started really young and you took that $50 and you made it $100, and whether that takes 2 weeks or 1 year, And then you take that $100 and you multiply it. Don't buy. I mean, I drove Nissans for years. Like I bought my Nissan brand new, but it didn't come with a radio. So there was those type of things that I didn't say, hey, I'm buying a really nice car, you know, a Denali or whatever it might be. Just keep taking that money and reinvesting it.
And don't be afraid to reinvest into yourself.
Yep.
And you know, the other thing too is don't be afraid to take risks at there. You've got the runway to recover, right? I mean, at 23 years old, you lose everything. Well,
that's the thing.
You know, like
I mean,
I've got all this runway.
Nick, would you bet on your whole life, your family, your all that kind of stuff? It's hard to.
Yeah, you change your risk level changes when you've got a family of 3 sitting at home expecting the dinner plate to be on top. You know, but when it's just yourself, I'll just whatever. I'll start over.
Yeah.
You know, like when we, you know, it's very similar. You know, when I was in the Oasis, it was just like all the chips were on the table.
Yeah.
You know, like, it was just like, well, if this fails, then I just got to start all over again.
Absolutely. Right. And at that age, you can.
Yeah.
And, you know, going out to the nightclubs and showing your wealth, having, you know, gold chains with diamonds and all that kind of stuff. You don't need that.
Yeah.
Like,
stay away from it.
That's a waste of money, waste of time. Like, why are you even going down to a jewelry store and looking at that stuff? Why don't you spend that time and look at know, the next business? Think about something else that you can be doing.
Yeah. You know, I say this a lot because I'm not saying don't follow sports if that's something you do to get out of your head, you know, but it's like nobody, you know, I've got a friend who's a physician and I was like, you know, we don't follow sports. And he's like, nobody's asking me if, you know, how that surgery went. You know, nobody's asking me my over under or, you know, my art, you know, my bats and all this other stuff, you know, like nobody's asking me about that. So why would I care about that? You know, so many people spend so much time on like watching football games or watching baseball games when you could be learning another language or you could be opening another business or you could be working on your business. You know, all of that time, you know, it's like, everybody's like, oh geez, I don't have enough time. It's like let me just show you, let me see your phone.
Yeah.
Let me see how much time you spend on social media.
Yeah. There's social media. There's that number one. Yeah. There's sports. That's number two. And there was something that just blanked out of my mind.
Social partying, being with friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you need that. There's a fine balance between that.
Yeah.
Oh, following people on you know, celebrities and all that kind of stuff, watching TV, all that kind of stuff. Like, oh, do you know what Vanderbilt bump or whatever it is? Like, no, I have no idea.
Yeah.
I've never even heard of it. Apparently there was 10 seasons. I've missed it for the last 10 years.
Right.
Yeah. It's, I think a lot of that just kind of comes down to self-reflecting and being self-aware. Like, hey, you know, if I look at my screen time and I see that I've been on social media for 4, sometimes like, you know, I look at my friends, it's like 7 hours a day on social media, and you see that, and like you don't like, and you're like, oh, whatever, cool. It's like, but it's the type of person who looks at that and says, oh, this isn't productive, you know. And then actually finding ways to deal with that. So I'll just use an example. Like I looked at my phone, I saw that I was on Instagram for like 2.5 hours a day. I was like, and, you know, I do a lot of Instagram for work, but I was like, this is a terrible use of time.
Yep.
So I knew that just saying like going cold turkey, just saying I'm not going to go on Instagram, it's not going to work. You have to find actually systems. So I invested into like an app. You know, I was only investing like $30 for a year or whatever, and you can time block when you can go on social media. So now I can only go on Instagram from like 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. and that's my social media time for the day. So I have time to get my work done and catch up with my friends. But it's like I think that self-awareness is huge in that, because most people, they just go through life and they you know, doing things that are actually setting them back. What did you say last episode? Like you say yes. When you say yes to one opportunity, you're saying no to like...
Yeah, when you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to everything else.
Yeah, so... But yeah, that's that self-awareness. And that mindset is really hard to develop. So I'm curious, like, what... Did you always just have that mindset of, hey, I'm self-aware, I need to be successful, this is bad for me? Or did you imagine that developed over time?
I mean, well, if you really want to go back, I grew up on a farm. So some of those things, you know, we never had the social media. We never had that. But I mean, I think being self-aware and humble is, you know, great qualities that anybody needs.
Yeah. So Tanner, I want to say thank you so much for coming on. This has been awesome. You know, I learned things. I always do when we spend time together. It's super helpful. You know, things that I'm taking away from this, guys, is, you know, systems. Find your systems, you know, be hungry. Don't be afraid to make mistakes and fail, you know, and keep moving forward. But what I do have to say is, you know, if you want to reach out to Tanner, you can find him at thestoragemogul.com. You know, he's got a wealth of information. You know, it's really, really cool what he's built in such a short amount of time. And I have a mentor that I listen to, and he says, you can be anywhere you want to be in 5 years. And it sounds like you've done that.
Yep, absolutely. You can also follow me on social media, Instagram at tannerherget.com or at Tanner Herget. I have a tannerherget.com also. So, yeah,
man, this is awesome. And
Thank you so much.
I can't wait to see what goes on in the next 5 years in your life.
We shall see.
Yeah, man.
Sweet. Well, Tanner, thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, buddy.